Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at this flight.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rotten about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
Thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And take that away.
You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed it is. It is a science thing. It's a science place. It's a scientific fact that we're all up in your face. It is time once again for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. And tonight's special episode, Mr. Dan Kubinski. Super excited to talk to this guy. Of course, Deadfinger is the newest thing. Excited to get into that with him. He's done all kinds of things, but most folks would know him for the legendary Die Kreuzen. So very excited to talk to that gentleman about all things new and old, under the sun and otherwise. And yeah, it should be a good talk. So let's, without further ado, do this here thing. We'll do this here thing. Welcome to Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I am your host, Conan Neutron. I'm a rock and roll lifer who has toured and recorded for over 22 years, most known for the band Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life, and I use the format of this long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect. Folks that may or may not be household names, but do something very special. This is episode 303. Some folks call it a palindrome. If this is your first time listening to the show, all of the archives are at protonicreversal.com and are always free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. If you'd like to support the show and get episodes sooner, you can give $1 a month to patreon.com/protonicreversal. And if you like the show or even just a single episode, please feel free to share it along, like, subscribe, or post a review. All that helps people find the show, and it's just a darn nice thing to do. So there we go. That is the read. That is the ad read. So without further ado, let's talk to the man. Dan, welcome to the show, sir.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I was psyched to see this Deadfinger record drop. I guess do people still say if something drops? I guess it drops, right? Sure, it drops. It was a pleasant surprise. Like I didn't realize that it was a thing. And I think that it's pretty interesting. So why don't we just start off with the newest, and you can tell me a little bit how that came to pass.
Sure. What would you like to know?
So it's ostensibly a duo, right?
It is. Yes, sir. Yep.
Did you have that in mind, or did it kind of come together more the music first and then the rest of the stuff later?
Well, if you want to get into the story, my friend Dwayne and I, longtime friend Dwayne Flowers, we used to play in a band called Fuckface together.
Fuckface, yes, of course.
Yep. And he recently moved back to Milwaukee just before the pandemic started. And I bumped into him during the lockdowns out in front of a grocery store. And we decided to get together and jam because we were both bored shitless, sitting at home doing nothing, couldn't go to work, couldn't do anything, right? So we devised a way to split our rehearsal spot in half with a sheet of plastic and secured it to the walls and put a construction zipper in the middle so I could get in and out. It was a pretty cool setup. And we were actually working on something else. I had tuned my guitar down to a drop C, and we were working on some pretty heavy,
right,
punk metal goth kind of thing. And we actually got pretty far. We wrote about 9 or 10 songs, and we were just contemplating, should we get a bass player or a keyboard player? Should we add a singer? Should I sing? We weren't quite sure where we were going to go when I got a phone call from an old friend asking if I could put together a pop-up band to come and play at the
Oh wow,
birthday
okay.
party. Yeah, and I thought about it for a minute, and over the years, I've been playing my acoustic guitar and just kind of, for fun, learning songs. I've got 30 or 40 in my repertoire, and Dwayne happened to be sitting there when I took the phone call, and I said, dude, how would you like to jam and play a party with me as a pop-up band? Just be you and me. You can accompany me on drums. And he agreed. He thought it sounded like fun.
Yeah.
So we had 2 or 3 weeks to learn a few songs. And yeah, pretty much almost all of those turned up on the Deadfinger record. So that's kind of how we formed. And as we were learning these 12 or so cover songs, it just kind of came natural one night. We were in between songs, just sitting there, and I was playing some random chords, and Dwayne started following me on drums, and I hit record on my little MP3 recorder, and suddenly we had a song, which is Ghosts. And when we listened to the playback, we were like, holy shit, man, it's all there. There's a song, there's a breakdown, there's an intro, there's an outro. Yeah. And I was even kind of scatting over the notes and the drums, the guitar notes and the drums. And I ended up using about 99% of the vocals that I just kind of threw out off the top of my head for the song. That's how that came about. And so we played the party, and people at the party took a video, and the video went on Facebook and garnered a bunch of attention. And that's when I started to think that, hey, maybe this could be something.
That'd be worth pursuing. Yeah.
Yeah. The next step was to record and see what things sounded like. So we did that with Shane Hochstetler over at Howell Street Recording. I knew he would do a great job, and it was wonderful working with him. And yeah, so here we are. We've got a record mastered by Mystery Room Mastering, and pressed up by Super Duper out of Madison. Kind of an all-inclusive state in-house deal.
Yeah, it's like Wisconsin Pride type affair is what it is.
Yes. So that's kind of the long and short of how we came about. It was kind of for fun, but now we're kind of, and it still is for fun, but we're taking it a little more seriously. And we've got about 7 songs written for the next record already. I want to have about 12 or 13, and then we'll go in and probably with Shane again and record. And the second effort will have mostly originals, if not all.
Nice. Yeah, because there are a few covers on this. There's like the Scott Walker one, and the Misfits one, the Bowie one as well. Yeah.
Some of my favorites.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, look, that's a good spread. But I mean, did you have the idea of just not having rules with it necessarily, like where you can kind of just keep it more focused on the art rather than putting labels on it or establishing rule sets or anything?
No, we actually toyed with some other songs too. The party we played at was actually for a couple of gals, so we kind of sort of, I don't want to sound sexist or anything, but we kind of sort of geared it towards a bit of femininity, and Patti Smith, and it was also for Halloween, so we did other things like Monster Mash.
The classic, of course. Yeah.
We toyed with like Pat Benatar's what the heck was it called? I can't remember right now. It'll come to me when we least expect it. But we toyed with a bunch of other songs, and finally just settled on these few. Right. But no rules, no, like, let's just have fun. Let's do this. And even when it came to recording, we practiced for a month and a half or so, kind of feverishly getting ready for the studio, because we wanted to go in and make it and get out of the studio and let Shane do his thing with the mixing.
Yeah, and obviously that's a guy that is very, very skilled, especially at recording.
Oh man.
Idiosyncratic bands and like bringing forth like unique voices to greater platforms. So you got that sorted.
Yes.
So it's interesting to me that it seems very guitar based to a certain degree, right? Like, do you ever have the idea of, like, do you think it's going to stay kind of cozy, like as a two piece, or do you think it could expand out in the future?
For now, I'd like to keep it a two-piece. We kind of toyed with the idea of bringing in some guest players, and I don't know if that'll happen on the second record. Maybe it'll wait for the third one. I don't know. I'm learning my way around the guitar still, and again, it kind of comes and goes from my life. Whether I'm playing in a band, like I have the Crosses going too, which is kind of quite some tribute band, and I'm the singer. But yeah, I think for now, two-piece and simple, dark. It's hard to say that acoustic guitar is heavy and dark, but I think Deadfinger is going to be pretty heavy and pretty dark with the second effort.
Well, no, because it exists. I mean, think about, I think it kind of enters the same realm as like the Steve Von Till solo stuff and things along those lines, where there's like there's a richness to it, but it's not going to be mistaken for Jackson Browne either.
No, no. It's pretty simplistic. My guitar skills can be kind of suspect at points, but I'm trying. I'm learning.
How long have you actually been playing guitar? Because before I moved here, because I've only lived in Wisconsin since 2017, but I toured and was I know Keith in terms of full disclosure, Brammer, but I think of you as one of the great frontmen and singers of like that era.
Oh, thank you.
And I wasn't even aware for a while that it was like, oh, he plays guitar too. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. So when did you pick it up?
I actually started my musical career, if you can call it that, as a bass player. I took lessons in high school and was trying to form a band, and amongst my friends, there was already bass players, drummers, guitar players, but no singers. And I kind of, by default, found myself setting down my bass guitar and picking up the microphone. But for the six string, I think I've always kind of dabbled with it because my dad was a guitar player. He was in a band when he was younger.
Sure.
And they were an acoustic band, a folk trio, and the Journeymen. And so there was always a guitar around, and I was always kind of messing with it. And he showed me a couple chords, but it wouldn't be until about 88 or so, 1988, when I started playing with my friend Chris Twining on drums. And it's almost kind of a Deadfinger kind of thing. He was playing acoustic guitar and I was playing drums. And he showed me some more chords, and he's got a pretty good pop sensibility. I liked what he was doing. I liked his melodies. And so he showed me more chords, and that's kind of when I played a little bit more in earnest, and when I started learning songs, Powderfinger, and some other things.
Yeah. So what kind of guitar players were you thinking about when you were sort of developing your style and starting to play? Like, were you what kind of stuff was interesting you when you?
Everything and anything. I guess, well, I was in high school when that first Van Halen record came out, and that blew my mind. Who didn't want to be Eddie Van Halen at that point, But then I bought the Sex Pistols record, and who didn't want to be Steve Jones with that monstrous guitar sound, And then the Clash kind of came along, and my friends kind of laughed at that first Clash record, like, dude, this sounds like shit. And I'm like, no, this is really cool, and the guitars are like intertwined and doing cool things together, and so there's all kinds of stuff. I guess my earliest recollection of wanting to be in a band and play guitar was my dad had Creedence Clearwater Revival records.
Oh, hell yeah. Nice.
I latched on to those, and I remember I'm trying to remember the name of the song. 747 coming out of the sky, gonna take me down and make me at midnight.
Traveling band.
Traveling band. That's the one. And that's when I knew that's what I want to do. I want to be in a traveling band.
Yeah, man.
So I guess it would be Creedence kind of sparked my guitar interest.
Well, and you could do a lot worse. I mean, Fogerty's very well respected for songwriting and for good reason. But I mean, there's some strong guitar stuff in that. I guess we'll call it strictly Chuglin sort of world. I mean, like it's really interesting and it serves the song well.
Yeah, loved him. Loved all the different layers and flavors of the records. I didn't really understand it all at first because I was pretty young, but
yeah.
As I grew, and especially when I got into my teens and could appreciate things a little more. AC/DC came along and I was like, holy shit, man, but I guess that happens to everybody, Some people would say Hendrix blew their minds.
The Beatles are a big one for people that were, maybe a class ahead or something, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a thing. And then how did Die Kreuzen actually form? I actually don't know this story. I feel like I should know this story, but I don't. So,
Brian Egnes and I, the guitar player from Die Kreuzen, had a band in our hometown of Rockford, Illinois, and we were called a couple of different things at first, the Stains, and then we changed our name to the Spots, and then we got a new bass player. This cat came along, Brian Hill, and people call him Bees. And he had just left a band that was called the Stellas, and they were actually moving to Milwaukee.
Interesting.
And without him. But he liked the name the Stellas, and I had a girlfriend named Stella, so I liked the name,
Right.
But that's kind of how we started. We, same thing, started playing cover songs, Ramones, Sex Pistols, Undertones, and we had a few originals. I'm trying to remember that first one, Suffocate, which was not unlike All White. It was kind of in that same vein.
Yeah.
The thing that we wrote together. And at some point, that band that moved to Milwaukee that had been called the Stellas was now called the Tense Experts. It was the Chacho brothers. And they invited us up to play for them, open up for them at the Starship. So we did, and immediately fell in love with Milwaukee and the Starship and the already built up scene that was here. Things were happening here already, and we knew that night as we were driving home that we were going to pack it up, move to Milwaukee, and do our thing up here, which we did.
Yeah, and lo, you did. Yes. So, and there's a few compilations and stuff before that first EP.
There's some cassette tapes, and the master tape record really did a lot for us. Paul Mayer from the Zero Boys put that together.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you got the Cows and Beer.
And then Cows and Beer followed not too long after that. We saw, to my recollection, we saw an ad in a fanzine for Bob's label, and it simply said, looking for bands for a compilation, send your tape here, submit now.
Right.
And so I submitted a couple of things that we had done, some demos, and Bob got back to us immediately. Love it. Want you on my compilation, Charred Remains, which was a cassette only, came with a booklet. Each band had a page in it. It's been re-released now on I think a double LP.
Yeah. That was a little bit ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, a couple years ago now. And then he got such great feedback from the Charred Remains cassette about Die Kreuzen, which also held things like Husker Du,
right,
and Void,
right,
and there's a bunch of others that went places, Rebel Truth, a bunch of other bands. But he liked the Die Kreuzen tracks and suggested that he was going to expand his label to vinyl, and he wanted to release a Die Kreuzen 7-inch, and that's where Cows and Beer came from.
Which is like 6 songs if I remember right, but I think only
Yes.
I think only one of them talks over 1:30.
Right, I was going to say 6 songs in about 5 minutes.
Right, yeah.
Or less.
I have that one and the that 1 Minute Man EP kind of in my same mind of just like, what can constitute a song, right? Like how soon can you get in and get out?
Right.
Exercise.
We don't need intros. We don't need outros. We don't need solos. All that shit. Here's the song.
Yeah, exactly, and it works, like that, and that absolutely works. Did you feel that nobody had any experience recording at that time?
At that point, I don't. Keith and Eric had recorded something with one of their bands, I believe. And well, we had done some things. Our friend Bill Stace had a studio in Milwaukee. Walls Have Ears, I think, is what it was always called. And that's where we did those early, there's a 12-song demo, sometimes referred to as the Crosses demo.
Oh, yeah.
We recorded that there, which might be part of what I sent to Bob.
Got it.
And there was another demo, 5 songs or 6 songs, also recorded by Bill, but that was earlier than the Crosses tape. And that was in the basement of the Starship. And that I sent out to all the fanzines I could find, like Forced Exposure and Flipside and all the little indie ones that I could get my hands on. Everybody got a tape and a bio.
Yeah.
And we got good responses from that, and which led to other things. Gigs and
yeah, a few other things. Yeah. So when did you end up hooking up with Corey for Touch and Go? That was obviously that he put out the eponymous, I think it's called, right? The self-titled. I always think of REM calling that record eponymous too, which is pretty hilarious to me. But
right.
But when did you hook up with Corey in Touch and Go?
Barry Hensler from the Necros had actually heard us. I think he might have heard Cows and Beer first. And, being the vocalist of the Necros, and Corey was the bass player in the Necros, he kind of twisted Corey's arm. And Barry, I believe, called me and said, dude, let's do a show. We're going to be in Chicago. We'd like to come up to Milwaukee and play with you guys. Right. So we did something. We did a show with Die Kreuzen opening up for the Necros at might have been called the Lost Dutchman's Mine at that point, which in later years it was known as the Unicorn. And the Necros came over and stayed at our house afterwards, and Corey and I sat up kind of late at night talking and listening to my Sisters of Mercy 12 inches. And
fantastic.
There was, what was that? I was into this weird, was it called Savage Republic? I think that's
yeah.
I had a Savage Republic record sitting there, and he was like, dude, you're like the only guy I know that's in the Savage Republic, and you like the Sisters. I love the Sisters. So we kind of hit it off. And in talking, we got to be friends. And I think it was when he got home, maybe a couple days after they left and got home, we got a phone call from Corey, and he said, let's do an album. I love your 7-inch. I love all these other tracks. You guys seem like good dudes, people I can work with. And he was going to put out that Negative Approach album first, all tied up or tied down. Tied down?
Yeah.
Tied down.
I had to think about it, but yeah.
I did too. It's been a while. So he put that out. And then he actually, if I remember correctly, he went out to the Pacific Northwest and worked a summer in a logging camp or something to earn money to put out both the Tied Down Negative Approach record and the Die Kreuzen record. And that's kind of how touch and go kind of went from there.
Yeah. So, and what a 1-2 punch to start it off with too. I mean, geez, you can do worse.
Right.
So who else did you feel like at that time, that first record time? Who else did you feel like you had common cause with band wise? Like who else was like doing interesting stuff that you felt were kind of like, hey, that's cool?
You know, there was so much coming out at that point. There were so many records, and that was a point, you know, we're talking like early to mid 80s where the only TV I had was like a little 9-inch black and white television, and I didn't even turn that fucker on anymore, except maybe watch reruns of Kung Fu on Saturday afternoon or something.
Yeah.
That thing didn't go on. It was all about music and going to see live music and playing records and discovering things. There was no internet or anything, so you had to physically go and see a band, or you had to go to the record store and take a chance, and I'm going to buy this record. But all that being said, bands, so that leads me to like, there was that first Maximum Rock and Roll compilation. I think it was a double album. If punk rock is dead, what the fuck is this? And then,
right. Yeah.
Bands on that thing, like that Fang track on there is killer, and even the Social Distortion track on there I liked. Almost every one of those bands struck a chord with me, you know. And I think Brian came home with the Minor Threat 7-inch, even though that had been out for a little while. I had never heard it, and that was, you know, so tight and clean and powerful, and so that really hit us. And those Void tracks from Charred Remains, holy cats, Bubba Dupree, dude, mother, wow, fuck.
Yeah.
And the Effigies came to town, and we didn't really know too much about them.
Yeah.
But they were Chicago's hardcore band, and they came to town, and we opened for them, and they liked us so much that they said, dudes, we're playing in Minneapolis tomorrow. It was Friday when they played Milwaukee, and we're playing in Minneapolis tomorrow with this really cool band called Husker Du. You guys should just come up and play. You can open the show. So sight unseen, unheard, we loaded all our gear into Eric's 1966 Chevy Impala. Just like a fucking boat.
Amazing.
Everything was in there. I think I rode with the drum kit on my kick drum on my lap, but we got everything in there, and we just drove to Minneapolis straight to 7th Street entry, and there was Husker Du, and there was Grant Hart wearing a headband, and he was like doing somersaults on the floor and saying crazy stuff, and he was like, "Oh, y'all got a band? Come on in. Sure, you can jam. You know, why not?" And we were great friends from that point forward. You know, that was a huge stepping off point for us. The next out of town thing I think was going to Indianapolis. We had a friend down there. Scott Colburn was a Die Kreuzen fan, and he had heard the master tape tracks. Or no, he had heard something else, because it was because of him that we got in touch with Paul Mayer from the Zero Boys and did the master tape.
Nice.
So those were our first couple of outings, and we also knew from those first couple outings that this is what we need to do: get out of town, go to Chicago, go to Minneapolis, Madison, Detroit, just work our way out, you know.
Well, and that's key, because I think that, like, when you're talking about the birth of what is modernly thought of as the DIY movement, the idea of like taking it on the road, taking it to finding your people in different places, is so key to it.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's you know, I mean, granted, there's a few books and stuff that have been written about it, but I think it's almost been lost in the era of like, we have all this connection to everything, but do we? I mean, everything is connected, but is it? And I think that it's notable that, like, at the time, it probably didn't feel like you were making history or anything at the time, I would imagine. It probably just felt like you're like, well, why don't we try to play some shows somewhere else? They like us here.
let's go have some fun. Let's go drink some beers, get in the van, or get in the van, go somewhere, and then drink some beers and play some music.
We got to get that order of events exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think we thought too much about it. I mean, there was a point when we still had that Cat Beezer in the band, the bass player, before we got Keith. That was more of a let's fuck shit up. Let's be punk rock and fuck shit up and destroy things and really cause a commotion at the Starship when we play. And at some point we got Eric on drums, and Beezer was going to leave, and Eric suggested we get his buddy Keith on bass.
Yeah.
And when we got Keith, we decided to change the name from the Stellas to Die Kreuzen, and there was a concerted effort then between all four of us to let's try and do something with this. We really like each other. We really like the sound that we're making, and we love all these bands around the Tar Babies from Madison, Tar Babies, Mech Mensch from Madison, Effigies, Husker Du, all these bands. We love them. Let's get in it. Let's do this. And there was a little bit of an idea, but it was more or less like, let's have fun. Let's enjoy this thing. Let's get out of town.
Yeah, and you did. So what was the first big tour for Die Kreuzen? Like the first one that took you so you're like, I am nowhere near home right now. What was the first one of those?
Well, there's a story behind that.
There is.
We were big fans of Black Flag and the Germs, and then this album came out by this band called the Circle Jerks, which totally blew our fucking minds. The speed that Lucky on drums was just incredible, man. And that really lit a fire under us. And so there were all these bands out in California that we suddenly became more aware of, and we thought, let's go to California. Let's book some shows and make our way out to California, and we'll get jobs in LA and we'll become part of the LA punk rock scene. Why not? So we went from Kansas City through Oklahoma, Tulsa, down to Texas, where we met the Offenders and played 4 or 5 shows with them. Then on to Arizona, where we played with this really cool band called Final Conflict. And then we got into California. And we stepped out of the truck one way too bright sunny morning on Hollywood and Vine, and we're like, oh, this place stinks. What the fuck are we doing here, man? And we played a couple shows, and we really didn't like it. We played one show at the Vex that it's actually on YouTube, and it was a good show, but it freaked us out because security guys had guns. Security was wearing guns,
Yeah.
And we did another show with Social Distortion, and man, I wish I could remember. I've seen the poster on the internet. I wish I could remember all the other bands, but we just weren't having a really good time in LA. And Richard Cole was our manager. He booked all these shows. He had booked one final show, but it was all the way up in San Francisco. And we're like, well, let's get in the truck. Let's go to San Francisco and see what's happening up there.
Yeah.
And we played at the Mabuhay Mabuhay Gardens.
Yeah. Legendary.
And we played with Napalm Beach. Wow, what a great band. And it just so happens that Jello Biafra had kind of heard of us, and he came down and was sitting in the audience at the MAB and liked us and asked, how long are you guys going to be around? Because in about 25 days, the Dead Kennedys are playing upstairs at the On Broadway, and we'd love to have you guys on the bill. And 4 of us looked at each other and we're like, we're kind of on the tour for life. We don't have anywhere to be.
Exactly. We'll clear the schedule. Yeah.
During that same instance there, that same conversation, there was a couple guys kind of standing in the peripheral that we got to know. Their names were Mike and Huey, and Mike and Huey had a house at 135 Duncan. I still remember the address. And they were like, if you guys need a place to stay, we'd love to have you. So suddenly we had a place to stay for about a month, and we had this cool show to look forward to. What we didn't have was a lot of money. I had never eaten so many potatoes in my life, dude, man. Potatoes, sliced baked potatoes, baked, anything you could do with a potato.
Right, exactly. They're nice and cheap.
We waited out the 25 days, and the show was with Personality Crisis from Canada, and I think Crucifix, but I'm not positive on that. And maybe Tales of Terror was on the bill.
Tales of Terror, nice.
Oh my God, dude! Talk about having to like, holy shit, we're playing with Tales of Terror. Yeah. You gotta like, we really got to be on tonight because those guys were insane. Holy fuck, man. But yeah, so we actually kind of lived in San Francisco for about a month, played the show, had a great time. We were asked to be on, because people saw us at that on Broadway show, we were supposed to be on Rap Music for Rap People Volume 2. But, well, anyway, we decided to go home. We had enough of California and the tour for life. Let's go back to Milwaukee. And when we got back, we pretty much quickly broke up. Brian decided he wanted to do other things, Brian, the guitar player. And so we split up for about 6 or 8 months. And I got a call from Keith one afternoon saying that he had gotten a call from Brian. And what are you guys doing? I think we made a mistake. Let's get back together and do this thing. And that was at about the time that Barry Hensler called and said, we're coming to town. We want to play with you guys. I want Corey to see you. And that's, things went from there. Nice. So that was the first tour. That really got us out there. And yeah, crazy stuff left and right, tripping balls and San Francisco on.
Yeah.
Somebody
San Francisco too.
Somebody gave us a handful of what they said were 4-ways and said, be careful. But they gave each one of us a 4-way. And my best buddy who was with us, being roadie, Hubie, took one, and I gingerly peeled off one corner and ate it. And about a half an hour later, I wasn't high, and my buddy Hubie was calling me a pussy, like, come on, dude, do the whole thing. What are you waiting for? So I dropped the rest of it, and man.
How'd that work out? That worked out okay?
In the end, it worked out okay. There was some crazy shit that went down in the interim, but
yeah.
Yeah, that's when I knew I was a long fucking way from home.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, that's to me, that's kind of one of the big moments for a band that tours too, is you have that like epiphany of like, man, I am nowhere near where I am from right now. Like it's like the being at sea feeling, right? Go ahead.
Just being with my buddies, though, you know. Our buddy Hubie and then the other 3 guys we were all brothers, and so I felt secure and comfortable and everything. But like I said, holy cow, man, we are standing, tripping balls, standing underneath the Golden Gate Bridge with helicopters flying overhead and stuff. We were like, we are a long way from home, guys.
Did you get? Did you ever hang out at Fort Point, where the Vertigo, the Hitchcock shot? That iconic scene by the Golden Gate Bridge.
I don't think so. No, we weren't there. No.
Do you know Vertigo, the movie Vertigo?
I know Vertigo, but I'm not sure of the place.
So it's right at the base of the Golden Gate Bridge on the SF side, on the Presidio side.
You're probably pretty close.
If you saw it, you'd be like, oh, yeah. But it's one of those things that you don't realize. You'd be like, why does this look familiar? You're like, oh, yeah, it's part of Vertigo. Like, it's like
we did go up. So another more band, another person that was at the Mabuhay show were the Naked Lady Wrestlers, which I was a big fan of them. They had a track on that first Maximum Rock and Roll album.
Right.
And they said, we're playing up in Petaluma for a
Ah,
party. Why don't you come on up and jam with us?
right.
So we didn't have anything to do while we were waiting for that Dead Kennedy show to happen. So we drove to Petaluma, and we passed by the house there where they filmed The Birds. So that's
Yes.
a little connection there.
Yep.
So we stopped there for a few minutes and checked that out. And then we continued on, followed the directions, and we ended up in this place. It was just a crossroads. There was a bar, and there was a convenience store, and then maybe like a junkyard there, an auto junkyard. There, nothing else in the middle of this wide open field. And this is where this party was. And we loaded our gear in, and it turned out to be a college toga party.
Wow.
And the Naked Lady Wrestlers had been totally pulling our fucking strings, man. They weren't going to show up.
Right.
So
Oh man.
we were like, we're all the way up here. Let's play.
Yeah.
So we set up and we played, and there was like 5 guys in bed sheets with their plastic cups of beer with their mouths hanging open to play that first Die Kreuzen album, you know, like they had never seen or heard anything like that before. They wouldn't give us any beer. I remember that. Like, hey, can I get a glass of that beer? And I think they gave us each one plastic cup, and I was like, you guys are cut off, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, Louie it wasn't, right?
No.
Get myself back in focus here. Well, and so I find that interesting too, because I mean, later on, I think like a more regular circuit kind of opened up, but it was still like a little more, for lack of a better term, Wild West.
Yeah, absolutely, it was. Yep.
And you know, I talk often on this show about how different touring is now. Back in, you know, it's like the reliance on payphones, for instance, you know, or people being at their phone, which is a physical thing, like on a desk somewhere, to be able to get information. You know,
I had to sit at our phone, and our band apartment was in the kitchen, and I had to sit at the kitchen table with the phone and a calendar and a phone book and call, you know, look up numbers. Dave from MDC gave us a bunch of numbers very early on, and I still have that phone book full of all that information that he gave us.
Nice.
And that's kind of how we booked that first tour and subsequent tours after that. And the more we got out and played, the more people would say, why don't you come to Cleveland? You know, why don't you come to Detroit? Well, have you been to New York City yet? CB's has these awesome Sunday afternoon matinees. You guys would fit in great. And that's how we got into CB's. Later on, we would headline on Friday or Saturday nights, but we started out by playing at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon at CB's.
And they kept that going for a long time too, man. They kept that going for a long time. Okay, so talk to me a bit about October File. How that came together, because you got a little more of a band identity. Yeah.
Can you see me all right, or should I?
You look great. There you go. You were looking a little goth, but not in a bad way, so I didn't say anything. The backlighting helps. Bela Lugosi was not in fact dead. Don't worry.
You know, when we recorded the self-titled album, we had, I think there's 21 songs on there, and we probably had close to 30 songs. But I believe I was the one that suggested, let's just record everything up to this one point, and we'll save the second batch of songs, or these newer songs, for a later recording or a second album or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a snapshot, that first record. But we had already been doing things like, some songs you can tell, like Imagine a Light was during the first album period, Uncontrolled Passion, and there's a couple others, but what you might not know is Among the Ruins was already being played, which is kind of a slower, throbbing song.
Interesting, yeah, because that kind of is a preview for sort of some of the stuff you get into later on, too.
Later on, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
It's Been So Long was already kind of a staple, which is a very kind of mid-tempo, almost a rock song. It's got a breakdown in it, and Man in the Trees was also one of those songs that we held over for the second record. So when it came time to do the second record, there was a few hangovers, but there was a lot of newer stuff, like Melt, I think, was a newer song. But Corey was like, dudes, it's been a couple years now. Let's do another record.
Right, yeah.
Gently prodding us. Let's do another record, guys. So we did the same thing. We went to Detroit and recorded in the same studio with the same engineer. And Corey was behind the board most of the time. And he was the first album, it says produced by Corey, Corey Rusk. And he was going to do the second album as well. And I think it still says produced by Corey Rusk on the back. Even though at some point, I remember this. I remember going, where's the echo button? I want to put on my vocals.
Yeah.
And the engineer showed me where it was, and I was playing with the fader, moving more and more delay on my vocals. And I vividly remember Corey kind of, well, sounds like you guys got this under control. I got things to do. And he left.
He just
and kind of left us to our own devices, which may or may not be a good thing or have been a good thing. I guess in the end it was a good thing because we felt a little freer to. I remember all of our arms reaching out to the board and moving faders and doing
this
things
way, that way, yeah.
you know. So it was very experimental for us at that point. Not only the songwriting and the songs themselves, but the way we recorded them and the way they were being mixed. We were just trying stuff. I guess the only rule we had when it came to songwriting, because we used to throw tons and tons of ideas out. Like the only rule or law we had was to never write the same song twice. Let's always expand and try something different, and let's really try. Let's not just take something and give it a go. Let's break it down and really experiment with it and go for it and try all from different angles. And so we really did that with October File and some of those songs. Anything goes at that point.
And I think that's is certainly, I feel like the beginning of the Anything Goes era of Die Kreuzen. And also, I mean, like, think of bands like Soundgarden and, Melvins and stuff who, like, obviously heard some of what you're doing and kind of like, oh, that's cool. Let's try something.
Well, later on, years later, I had heard of this band Soundgarden. A friend had played what was the first 7-inch called? The
one with Flower and all that. I'm trying to remember.
Nothing to Say. The Nothing to Say 7-inch.
Yeah. Yeah. You're thinking, the very first. Yeah. Okay.
And they had played it for me because they were like, this guy's vocal style, I think he's kind of doing something that you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
This. And I immediately fell in love, man. The guitar, the way that song kind of flowed and meandered, and it was heavy, but it was slow. And I got wind that they were playing in Chicago at the Cabaret Metro. So I drove down to see them, and I pulled up. There's a little entranceway next door to the Cabaret Metro, and I pulled my car in there because there was a band loading out. They had a big van, and I immediately recognized Kim. He's hard to miss.
He's a pretty unique looking dude. Yeah.
And I jumped out of my car and I said, oh man, I'm here to see you guys. Did you play yet? What time are you going on? And he looked at me, and Kim looked at me and said, dude, no, we just got done. We're loading out. Oh, fuck. I can't believe I came all the way down here. I missed you guys. But we became friends from that point forward. And I think it was the bass player Hero at that point.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
He looked at me and he's like, I know you. You're in a band, right? And I said, I play in this little band called Die Kreuzen. And Kim was like, holy shit, yeah, you're the singer from Die Kreuzen. me and Hero used to come and see you all the time here on like your Saturday afternoon matinees at the Metro and stuff. We love you guys. So immediately, friends.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a bonded in blood kind of kind of experience for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's fascinating to, with that era, that would have been like what, 86 or something. It kind of felt like for amongst the more creatively adventurous bands, that what the novelty of like play as fast as you can, like sort of was the guild was kind of coming up to Lily a little bit.
Being on tour and playing with, oh my God, it couldn't just be two bands or even one band opening. It was always the same 4, 5, 6 bands opening, and they were all just playing at breakneck speed, whether they could or not.
Right? Yeah. I get it.
And after a while, it was just like, man, there are other ways to display brutality, motherfucker. Like there's other ways to do it. And we wanted to explore those ideas. Not that we wanted to be brutal, but we, like I said, we wanted to try other things and not write the same song twice and just try other things.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and like, Black Flag was doing it, My
Yes.
War and whatnot. Like,
Yeah.
and that
What a great record.
Absolutely, but maybe not exactly what people were wanting to hear from them at the time, but it didn't matter.
Right. Oh, we got tons of shit for October File, dude. Even Corey, he picked us up in the studio a few days later because he went from being in the studio to we stayed at his house at night, and so he would drive us to the studio in the morning, and he went from sitting in there with us to just dropping us off and letting us work on what would soon become October File.
Yeah,
but we brought a cassette tape home, some rough mixes one night, and by this point I believe they had the Greystone going in Detroit, the club that they ran.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he took the cassette and pumped it through the giant speakers and turned it up really loud, and Cool Breeze came on, and he looked at us. He's like, "This isn't you guys. What are you trying to do?" We're like, "No, this is us, man. Don't you like it?" And he sat back and was like, "I don't know if I like this or not." And I think, if I remember right, I think Big Black was playing that night or something, and I can't remember dude's name, but the bass player was standing there, and he was
Dave Riley.
Yes. And Dave thought it was all right, but Corey was like, "Yeah, I don't know. This is the new Die Kreuzen, huh? I don't know." He was a little unsure.
Which is so funny because I mean, I think the modern context, it doesn't, I think it fits like very nicely, but then I think there's also been a blending of genres and sort of like maybe less of a snap judgment towards a lot of things. And that wasn't the only record like that, right? There's other records that people are like, what are they doing? Why are they doing
that? And transfer that to live gigs.
Right, which is much
the last of the Mohicans are like, "Play something fast, come on, you fuckers!" I'm like, "Oh, well, we have this.
Here's Among the Ruins,
Yeah. It's heavy, you can dance in a circle if you want to Among the Ruins. It's fine.
Fine, it works out fine for you.
They didn't care what it was as long as it was fucking fast, And I've got endless live tapes where in between songs, "You fucking suck, you fuckers, play something from your first album, you suck now," and on and on and on with that. And after a while, you just, fuck you, and we kind of fucked with them back, like, "Oh, you want something fast? Here's a little song called Deep Space."
Right.
It's akin to Cool Breeze, and
strap in. Here we go.
Yeah, strap it on, baby. Get ready.
Well, and then so you're working that record and you're going through and playing these shows and dealing with that and that world at the time. Then you come out with Century Days, like that's so notable because that's the first Butch did that one, right? Butch Vig, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that is the first Butch Vig record. Yes,
But there's like piano on there and like saxophone and like and you know
sax and trumpet and
yeah.
well, that's part of our I guess theory is let's explore other avenues. Let's try other things. Let's be different. Let's not write the same song twice. What can we do here? And actually, there's a couple songs that I can think of that were kind of a catalyst for the horns. One being the Saints, "Know Your Product."
Oh
Like,
yeah.
oh fuck
Yeah,
man!
yeah.
So and that's kind of where that song meets Die Kreuzen and Stomp would be.
Oh
It's
yeah.
kind of a know your product kind of thing, And I remember Peter, the sax player. I don't think he realized Peter Balestrieri. I don't think he realized exactly what he was saying, but he was in there blowing his sax and trying out things. And at some point he put his sax down. He's like, "What's with all these fucking rock bands wanting to have saxophone on their goddamn albums anyways?" And we all looked at each other like, "Dude, we love you. We want you on our record."
You like what you do. I mean, okay. Although to be fair, it was the 80s and there was a lot of saxophone on a lot of records, to be clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, still, come on, man.
Come on, dude.
That's the one I think you got the Halloween, the Halloween song on there.
Yes. Yeah, we had done Halloween since our inception, pretty much. We played at a high school once, and we needed to play 2 45-minute sets.
Oh man,
And,
yeah, it's a lot when all your songs are so long.
21 songs in about 19 minutes. Now what are we going to do?
Well, there's the first two records. All right, we got half of one set left.
We did. So yeah, we did. We did a Pink Floyd song that I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but it just goes on forever. It's like the same.
Echoes, right?
Yeah, we played that, and the other thing was Brian was like really into horror movies, and he'd sit in his room and play guitar and sometimes play along with the soundtracks in the movie, and he learned kind of those chords or those notes for Halloween, and he showed it to Keith, and so that was one of our things at that high school where we had to play for so long. We played this long version of Halloween, and every so often we'd pull that out and shake it around. So It was always there, and I can't remember why we decided to record it. I guess we just kind of wanted to, like, let's do this because we can.
Yeah, why not? No one told you not to, right?
Yeah, it's not on the record though. I think you have to get the CD version it's like an extra track or something.
Oh yeah, that's the version I have, so that's probably why I'm thinking of it.
And the cassette tape has one of my favorite Die Kreuzen songs. It's not on the album, Dream Sky. I wish that would have been on the album, and we would have left something else off. I'm not sure what, and Corey Rusk says the same thing. That's his favorite Die Kreuzen song, and he's sorry that he didn't try to talk us into having that on the album.
What was the what was the mindset behind not putting it on? Just length?
Yeah, it was so long and it was kind of slow.
The one before it's kind of long too, so maybe it was like literally you couldn't fit because vinyl has a certain amount of time period.
Yes, and that's exactly a factor. And it was, you can only put so much music on a vinyl record, and that was the format we were using at that point. I don't think the records had come out, the first two, on cassette yet. That was years down the road when when Corey said, "Oh, finally we're going to do cassettes," and then CDs came along. And we had to go in and remaster things for the CD, which we went into the mastering studio, all four of us, and laid around all day while this poor guy was like, "Who the fuck are these guys, man? Watching me work, and
what is this? What are you doing?
And what is this music? Holy shit!" But he did all 3 albums in like a day, and
anyway. Did you? How was it working with Butch at that point? Did you feel like he was a kindred spirit for what you're doing?
Yes, it was like a breath of fresh air. We, instead of going to Detroit and sleeping on Corey's floor, which was fine, we were all about sleeping on floors at that point, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
But we got to work with Butch. He would drive all the way in from Madison, and we'd meet him in Waukesha, a studio there called Breezeway. And they gave us a really good deal. We would show up at about 8 or 9 o'clock at night and work until 3 or 4, or sometimes later in the morning. And it was great working with Butch because he could just dial stuff up. He had ideas, try this, go there. Let me do this with the kick drum. You know, we're not getting a good sound where the drums are in the room. I know this is where the studio says their sound is, but I think we should move them over here. And
Yeah.
you know, he had all kinds of great ideas. So it was really cool to work with a seasoned studio veteran, also a fine musician himself, you know.
Well, and it seems like all the records he was doing around that time, they all are very, you know, super interesting, and if not the best records in those bands' discography, certainly some of the more interesting sounding ones for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So did you think then and this what is that's got to be, so that's late 80s, right? That's 89, is that right?
89, I think.
Yeah, 88. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you also did you did that EP too that has that great
The Gone Away EP.
Yeah, that great Aerosmith cover. It's on there where it's like,
which we also took a lot of shit for,
which is hilarious because I mean 89 was not a time where it was cool to like Aerosmith, for sure, to be sure.
Not really. But collectively as a band, they were something that we all had listened to in high school.
Sure. Dude, Rocks, Toys in the Attic, like those early records are like, people don't even believe you, and then you put them on, you're like, wow, this is really good. It's like, yeah, man, I know.
This is Aerosmith. I mean, that Rocks album is heavy, man. Holy shit, you know. I can't even really. We toyed with a bunch of covers. We toyed with Something for Nothing by Rush off 2112.
Oh wow, okay.
We were all Rush fans. We did that in rehearsal, but I don't think we ever played it out. We played, and I think we played out Simon and Garfunkel's "The Sound of Silence." I have have a cassette tape of that from rehearsal. It's on the lines of number 3. It's got a super heavy, echoey guitar playing those notes. That was always cool, and I was always bummed that we never recorded that for real. I always thought we did a good version. And this would really shock people. Somewhere I have a copy of this too at rehearsal. We used to play Different Light by the Bangles.
That's awesome. I love that. That's great. Bangles are great. That's awesome.
You know, in our tour van, because we were touring heavily through October File through the end. And so music just floated in and floated out of the truck constantly. People were giving us cassette tapes of their bands. A friend of mine, actually I had just met him, but he would turn into a friend, Tim Stiegel from Texas, gave me a cassette of Hazel Atkins, and from that point forward, I was a huge Hazel Atkins fan.
Yeah, man.
So there was tons of stuff every day. There was something different and something to like or something to hate that was going through stereo, you know?
Yeah.
So there were tons of things that were influencing us, and let's try this, and just for the fun of it, let's try that, and lots of things going on. Yeah, the people would be surprised, I think.
Was there? What's something you can remember that's like one of the nicest surprises of like, oh, this is not going to be that great, and then you're like, oh wow, this is awesome. Was there anything that like stick on your mind from those days?
As far as a song?
Yeah, just as like people handing you their demo tape or whatever. Not to put you on the spot, but I always like hearing these stories sometimes.
I know there's some somewhere, and I'm drawing a complete friggin' blank at the moment, dude. There were so many things that would come in and out of the truck. Oh, there was a band from Texas, and I think I still have that cassette somewhere, called Three on a Hill, that were just, I didn't really expect. I didn't like the name.
Right.
They were a 3-piece, and I just thought it was kind of a bland name. But when we popped in the cassette, like, holy shit, these guys are really good.
Yeah.
And same thing with Napalm Beach, to go back to that Mabuhay Garden show. Who the fuck is Napalm Beach? And those fuckers threw down, man. That guitar player was amazing.
Yeah.
You know? Total surprise, total shock, total surprise.
Well, and around that time too, you're playing shows with like Laughing Hyenas, Sonic Youth, things along those lines, right? Like
that tour we did that we were calling there was like a Metallica tour that was called the Monsters of Rock or something.
That's right. Yeah.
Jokingly, you know, tongue in cheek, we're calling that Hyenas, Kreuzen, Sonic Youth tour the Monsters of Indie Rock tour. You know, just amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
But that was one of the best times ever. That was to have that show and know what we were going to do and know who we were playing with every night. It was going to be in a medium to a large size venue in front of a lot of people. And, you know, having the Hyenas play first.
Yeah, talk about sitting in the bar.
You have to be on your game, dude.
Yeah, there's nobody phoning it in.
No. My little side note, my parents hadn't seen us in years, and I think they had only seen us play once or twice, but that Sonic Youth Kreuzen Hyena show played at the Cabaret Metro in Chicago, and I reserved a table and made my folks come. Like, you got to see us in the school club. I got a seat reserved for you in the balcony, right in the center, right next to the soundboard. And they brought my sister, and they had, those poor people had to sit through the Laughing Hyenas, you know. And they were just, what is this? Oh my God.
Yeah, maybe not their bag necessarily.
No. Not quite Creedence Clearwater Revival or the Moody Blues, two of my dad's faves. But then we came on, you know, and they sat through that, and I went up to their table afterwards, and they were like, "This is what you do? You do that every night? Like, how can you keep that up?" Well, I'm only 25, and that's what we do.
At that age, it's actually relatively easy.
It's very easy when you're 25. Yeah.
I didn't want to just talk about the Aerosmith cover. I think "Gone Away" is actually probably one of the more interesting Die Kreuzen songs.
Dude, I was so proud of that when we got that was the first time we worked at Smart Studios. So Butch was in his hometown dig, so to speak, you know, where he was most comfortable, and we got home from that weekend session, and I plugged that cassette into my Walkman and took a walk around the block, and I absolutely could not believe that was us, that was me singing like that. That was this band that, you know, had been a thing for 8 or 9 years at that point, or whatever it was, and I was so proud of that song.
It's really good, man.
It encompassed all the different elements of Die Kreuzen perfectly. The heaviness, if you want to call it softer side a little bit in there, the intricate guitar layers, and you know, the bass working differently, but working with the drums, but working against the guitar. Everything was all right there in that one song, and I had never, and still have never, been as proud of a Die Kreuzen song as I was at that point with that song.
Yeah, man, it's a great one, and it's crazy that it's like on an EP, right? Where it's like, I mean, the true heads know, sure, but like it's fascinating, because I would say the same thing. It's like the culmination of all the things that you guys did in its best form.
Yeah. I think, if I remember right, we needed a record. Corey wanted a record, so we kind of needed a record, but we weren't ready to do an album yet. We were working on those songs that would turn into Cement.
Right.
But we weren't quite ready to throw down all the material yet. So he was like, well, how about a live record? And we thought, yeah, cool. That's a great idea. And we had released Seasons of Wither on the Atomic Records compilation here in town, a version of it. And it's an inferior version. It's not near as good as the one that ended up on the Gone Away EP. But we thought, we've got this one song that we really like, and Gone Away kind of just fell out of the band at rehearsal. Like, it happened so quick. It was written in a matter of 1, maybe 2 rehearsals. It just, like I said, it fell out. And so we had this song, and we had the Aerosmith song that we wanted to redo because we weren't exactly happy with the first version on the Atomic compilation. And then with Corey's idea of the live album, we thought, well, we've got something here. Let's do all these things and put it together, and that'll hold us over until we're ready to make another album.
Right. Yeah, and then it ends up being like one of the more sought out releases because which is not probably like what the goal was at the time, but it's what the people for. EPs are EPs and records are records, and I think that matters less now, but because it's all just one big thing. But I think at the time, like, there was this assumption that an EP was somehow lesser than an album for a while, which is incorrect objectively, but but it was a thing. It was a thing.
Yeah.
So when you're making the next one, this is like, I call it the gold rush, right? Where there's that brief window where like the freaks got let in, right? And Cement, that's like October '91. Right, that finally comes out. So where were you guys at as a band at that time, having basically operated throughout the entire '80s, and that there are these killer bands, some of which you've been on tour with, that are putting out some of their best work, but like then the world like changes. So what is that like to be like right at the epicenter of all that, but also have it ostensibly be like kind of the end of the line to a certain degree? Like, was it you burnt out? Like, what was the headspace in the band?
Well, you can kind of tell by the liner notes from Cement that we were very unsure about what was going to happen next.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things going on. There was Profile Records out of New York was kind of chasing us around, the people that put out Run DMC albums. And then also Michael Alago, who signed Metallica, was kind of courting us a little bit. He had read something about Oct File way back when it came out.
Oh wow!
And from that point forward, every time we went to New York, he was there, and we'd go and have dinner with him, and he'd take us to the office and give us the latest Cure release and whatever else was coming out on the label. And so there were, we were, and Mechanic Records, John Sinclair, Mechanic was a subsidiary of MCA. So there was a little bit of flirtation from a couple of different areas with major labels, which was kind of happening to all these other bands, or brother and sister bands, people were getting picked up. And even Corey said at one point, I don't want to let you guys go to a major label, but it might be the next logical step. Yeah. I'm not sure that I can take you guys to the next level. If that's really what you guys want to do, I don't know if I can take you there. Yeah. So he was kind of okay with it, so we were we made a demo and we shopped it around, and it got a little attention here, a little attention there, but nobody really bit. And so we made Cement. We went back to work. We went back to Smart Studios and made Cement. But there, without getting into certain members and who it was or anything, there was just, it was a dark period. We weren't quite getting along the way we used to. And earlier in the interview with you, I said that we were like brothers and everything. Well, that had kind of fallen apart a little bit. We weren't exactly brothers. We had other things going on in our lives, girlfriends. We didn't have a band house anymore. We had a house there where I lived and where Brian lived, but Keith and Eric weren't there, and we rehearsed there. So the brotherhood thing kind of was falling apart already, and you know, Keith was doing other things with other bands like Wreck, and Keith and I were both in Boyder Car at that point, and so there was other things going on, and I can't say what, you know, other members thought, but at one point somebody said, "I'm quitting and I'm moving on." The quote was, "I'm bigger and better things. I've got bigger and better things to do."
Yeah.
And that was it. Yeah. I mean, we did put out Cement and we did tour and we did go to Europe on it. Or no, we didn't. We were getting ready to go to Europe when the hammer fell and
exploded.
Yeah. And Corey was a little miffed because we spent a lot of money on making that record. There's, I mean, the guitar layers on that record.
It's very layered. Yeah.
Oh my God. If you know, put on one of the first Cocteau Twins records and then put on Cement, and you'll see very similar things going on with the layered guitars. And
sure.
A lot of work went into that record, both via the band and both Butch mixing. I've still got the cassettes. He would mix everything, send us a cassette, and we'd all critique it and call him back. And then a week later, another cassette would arrive, and we'd listen and critique it and send him our notes. And then another cassette would arrive. And finally, we agreed we had to stop and we got to put this record out.
Yeah, at some point you have to, right? I mean, like.
And there was tons of money Corey spent on ads, ad in Rolling Stone, an ad in Spin Magazine, and tons of promotional things. And all of a sudden we broke up, and Corey's like, "What the fuck? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I'm not happy about this, guys." And we were just like, we can't go on anymore. You know, this is, we've taken it as far as we can, and one guy left already. What else can we do? You know?
Yeah, and it's a long time to spend on something, but then also when you think culturally, what else was happening like late '91 too? Yeah, that must have been kind of bittersweet, I would imagine. You know?
Yeah, it was. It was, you know, it was also very freeing.
Yeah.
Keith and Eric and I started a band called Chainfall.
Right? Yeah.
Later. And again, like that same feeling that I had with the Gone Away song, returned with Chainfall. Like suddenly I didn't have to worry about the Last of the Mohicans telling me to play something fucking fast, you know?
Right. Yeah.
We were free of all that fucking shit. Like we can do what we want. There's no pre-connotations to what's going to happen tonight. You know, are you going to play that first album, or are you going to play that fucking Cool Breeze song, or whatever it was? You know,
Right.
we're free. We can create. We can do what we want. And that was a really great period there. That was a wonderful year of songwriting. And we did 2 demos. There's a 4-song demo that we did with that same cat, Bill Stace, and his Walls Have Ears studio. That it's really great. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever done. But yeah.
When did Fuckface come together?
Die Kreuzen was still a band, I think, and there was a band in town called FI, and FI kind of split into 2 different bands. There was the one band that went to Europe and made a bunch of records, and then there was the original FI that was Richard Frenecki. And so when that second FI band started to do stuff, Frenecki, instead of continuing on with FI, formed this thing called Vocal Cache. And for their first record, he reached out to other fellow bands and musicians and said, just record something and send it to me, and we'll use it as a backing track for Vocal Cache. I'll play over it or I'll use it somehow. So he reached out to, I think, Dave Showinski at Earwaves Records. He was the owner. And Dave tapped me and Dwayne Flowers, who plays in Deadfinger with me, and a couple other people. Chris Jern from Chicago, who's a wonderful guitar player, and Dave Rake, who's a monster guitar player. God rest his soul. And we set up a boombox in a rehearsal spot and just went nuts for a couple hours and recorded it and dropped the cassette in the mail to Fernecki, and it ended up on the first Vocal Cache album. But that little, the 4 or 5 of us, we had such a good time together, and we were already in that first like 4 or 5 hours kind of in our rough jams. Songs were forming already.
Yeah. Like you had a storm go brewing.
Yes.
So
we decided to get back together and do more. And it was very loose. It was more of a jam band, dare I say,
right,
but heavy and weird, fucked up. And Dave, we were listening to one of our rehearsal tapes in the store, and Dave turned to me and said, "We're going to call this Fuckface." And I'm like,
recipe for commercial success. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, you invoked Savage Republic way earlier on, and when it first came to my attention, I was like, "Oh, it's kind of like a Savage Republic kind of deal."
Yeah.
At the time, I had a limited palette to describe.
No, I think you're right on. Yeah.
And like the fact that I think for a while, if a band had a second percussionist, like, oh, it's like Savage Republic. but in this case, it actually does. It does.
Yeah. No, I agree. So that's how we started.
Yeah, awesome. And then like there's there's a few sort of iterations of it, right? And they kind of continued on. Was the idea of it being like that's going to be a serious enterprise, or was the more just like, hey, we're doing cool stuff here, let's just keep doing cool stuff?
After jamming a bunch, somebody said we're putting all this time into this, and we've got these pieces now. They weren't exactly songs, but they were pieces, that we would play. Like, let's do that piece that we called Disneyland, or let's do that piece called Tex.
Sure.
And somebody said we should be playing some shows. This would blow people's minds. And so we started doing shows. And songs had to start and end. So over the course of a year or two,
ideally, yes,
endings and middles and endings started to form, and we started to kind of cue off of the vocals, like, oh, he's going to do this, and so we're going to change right here. And so songs started to form, and eventually, I was playing drums, and eventually I moved to second guitar because we had Eric Tunison on drums. We added this cat, Jed Chrysler, on drums. We added Paul New from the Crusties on drums. And we had Dwayne Flowers. And eventually even Dan Duchesne from Rushmore would come in and sit on drums. And I'm like, well, what the fuck am I doing here? I don't need
how many drums do you need in this outfit? Yeah.
Well, I moved to second guitar and was just more or less rhythm. And Dave showed me some stuff. He was a very good guitar teacher, taught me a lot of things. But yeah, that's Fuckface. And then, like I said, as the songs kind of developed and formed, we decided to go into the studio and record. And there's your Fuckface album. Actually, we recorded like 2 7-inches first. And those were a little bit more loose. And it wouldn't be until we did the album that things were a little more concise and compact.
Yeah. And, kids, if you're going to go search for the band, make sure to put band in the search. That's why it's going to get something entirely different.
Yes.
But there's the one with the smiley face that Dan put out on Latest Flame.
That's the full album, yeah.
Full album, yeah. Which has there's like It's like it has like wave of mutilation on it, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Like it's got like amongst many other things. Like it's an interesting record, but like
I think everything we ever recorded, like I think there's a Frank Zappa song on there that we did for a Zappa tribute, and I think the 7 inches are on there, and then there's even a rehearsal on there too. I believe there's a song called the Desert Song that we never recorded in the studio, but we had a pretty good rehearsal tape of it, and that we put that on there just to more or less document everything that we had ever done, every song that we had ever played.
there's a question from the comments asking if there's any Fuckface live or rehearsal tapes from the Keith era.
There is a fantastic live performance. See, when Keith joined, we still did some of those Fuckface songs, but immediately when Keith joined, he and I set into writing all new stuff.
Yeah.
And he and I wrote probably 7 songs, and I've never been so proud before of being I guess it was my first it's my first entry into songwriting. But yeah, there's a live tape. I have a copy, and I've given out copies of it. It's floating around. But there's some great stuff on there. He had some great ideas, and he worked with me and let me just kind of develop things and find my way around the guitar neck. Really proud of that stuff. But unfortunately, we never
Recorded it properly.
Recorded it properly in a studio. But there is we opened for the Violent Femmes.
Nice.
Please welcome F-Face. That's how we were introduced.
Well, there's that band from Australia who are wonderful, Tropical Fuckstorm. But yeah, like I always see them build this Tropical F Storm, and it's like, wow, are we in the 1960s? Really? You can't just say the word? Okay. Like, it's like, the punk rock club, you can't say it. What are they gonna do? Wash your mouth out with soap? Anyway.
Thank God it's 2022 and we can say fuck face.
Yeah, finally, at last we can. Everything else is terrible, but you can say that and it's okay. So there was the Lean Into It, right? That the thing with Napalm Death and Season of Risk
and Mike
yeah. I mean, and that's like 2004, 2005, somewhere around there, like a little bit later on. How is that? Like seeing like a tribute album of like your band. Like how does that feel?
Blew my mind, dude. Blew my mind. You know, I appreciated every one of those bands taking time to learn and record and do their own versions of our songs. But having some of those very established people like Voivod and Napalm Death and Mike Watt really for the first time, see, I guess when Die Kreuzen broke up, for me personally, it was like I had wasted a bunch of years of my life. Like we got to a certain point and we didn't go the last mile. You know, we just kind of gave up. We broke up. We fucked up, whatever it was. And in my mind, I felt like I had just wasted 10, 15 years. Like because I wanted to be in a successful band. And
you can't put all that credit in the bank. You know, it's not legal tender.
But when the tribute came out, and all those bands from, you know, there are bands from Europe on there, it made me take pause and think that, well, okay, maybe it wasn't all for naught. You know, I mean, here we touched some folks, you know, and
fire, you know,
there's some established bands that are saying, no, you guys were cool. We liked what you were doing. So I was very proud of that. It was a good moment. And it also made me feel better about everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's gotta be crazy, but you know, like obviously very flattering. But
yes,
you gotta nuts to hear people like interpreting like a song after song after song, and it's pretty good. I mean, like, sometimes you hear some of those and you're like, all right. But I felt that one was pretty good.
Season to Risk did a great job.
Yeah,
you know, the Voivod cover is almost verbatim Piggy on guitar, dude. Like, wow.
It's hard to be mad
Cool,
at.
man.
Yeah, exactly. So walk up to the lead up to you guys doing the reunion stuff. There was a, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a benefit that happened first, right? The first thing was the benefit.
There was a benefit for Atomic Records. They were going to close up, and Keith suggested that we get together and do a few songs. But Brian wasn't around anymore. He was living in Texas, I believe, or maybe he was in the Virgin Islands still. He moves around a lot. And Eric was in Amsterdam at that point with his own restaurant. So
Quite
Keith,
a commute.
pardon?
I said quite a commute. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Getting to and from rehearsals takes some time. But so, yeah, we got some guys together, Damian Stringes and a couple other folks, and
Taylor is a
Tiller, and we did a couple of songs, Seasons of Wither. We did a Wire song and a couple of other covers that Die Kreuzen had done. And yeah, I guess that was kind of catalyst because it was a lot of fun, and you could kind of see it in people's eyes, like, oh man, check it out. It's almost Die Kreuzen. Like, wow, cool.
Yeah.
And then again, a couple years later, for the Lest We Forget, the first one, actually, I think there was something before that. There was Damian Stringe's wife, Betty, had been tapped by Alverno College to do a Patti Smith night.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
And she called up Keith and asked if there was any way that she could get Die Kreuzen to reform and play at her Patti Smith concert.
Nice.
And of course, that was kind of impossible.
Yeah.
But we had worked with Tiller, and Tiller had actually sat in. Very few people know this. We had a gig in Minneapolis, Die Kreuzen did, and Eric couldn't make the gig. He had double booked himself with a job that he really needed. And Tiller sat in on drums. We drove up to 7th Street Entry, and I think there's a bootleg of that too.
Yeah, I mean, you could do worse.
Playing. So anyway, Tiller had been in the band, so it wasn't a far stretch. Like, let's ask Jay if he'll play guitar, because he was kind of like the fifth Kreuzen, so to speak.
Yeah.
And Keith said, I think my friend Dan Hankey, who's a huge fan, would love to play drums.
Who's a great fucking drummer too. Really.
Yes, absolutely. So we did the Patti Smith. We learned 3 or 4 Patti Smith songs and did the thing. And again, it was a lot of fun. And then a year or something later, the phone rang again, and it was the guys from Lest We Forget asking, what will it take to get Die Kreuzen to play a couple songs at this thing?
Yeah.
Because Lest We Forget was originally for a benefit for the Liver Foundation, and we had a lot of close personal friends that have died of liver failure and other things over the years. So we decided it was a good thing, and Eric was into it. Eric's like, I'll fly in from Amsterdam. We'll get a week's rehearsal or 2 weeks, whatever, and let's do this. This will be fun. This is a good cause. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But Brian didn't want to, and I think at that point he was living in Texas, but he didn't want to do it. And so we asked if we could have Tiller play guitar, and he said, sure, man, that'd be great. Why don't you guys go and have fun, learn a few songs, go and do it. So we did that, and the crowd went apey for us, and a lot of stuff showed up on the internet, and that's when Voivod called and said, oh, we see Die Kreuzen is doing shows again. We are curating Roadburn this year. What will it take to get Die Kreuzen to come over and play Roadburn in the Netherlands with us? We couldn't make it that year, but we did it the following year in 2012 with Tiller and with Eric. And that's where the reunion shows. So we had so much fun doing the Roadburn thing that we came home and played a couple more shows here at home. And those were so much fun I think it was a year later or 2 years later where we did the mini tour. We did Minneapolis, Madison, Milwaukee, and Chicago.
And you had like We Are Hex played on
Yes.
those, I think, were amazing. Just played some shows with Service, by the way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
And like you've had a hi-fi, I think Northless, I think maybe. I'm trying to remember. But anyway, yeah. The point of fact is like you took bands that you liked that weren't necessarily, not there could be, but Die Kreuzen sound-alike bands, or bands that just were interesting and that you guys liked that were working.
Bands that were interesting.
Really cool. Yeah, and that's, I think more bands should do that when they have the ability to do that.
They were that kind of came into play when we got the Whammy Award.
Right. Yeah. Which is
we always like to do this to the establishment, and back in the day, the Whammy board had voted us best heavy metal band, like right after Gone Away and before Cement, I believe.
Fantastic.
Fun.
Boy, do they have their fingers on the pulse, huh?
And they wanted us to play. Right. So we came out at the Whammy Fest and played Deep Space with John Cruth on mandolin. Here's your fucking heavy metal, man.
Y'all like real metal? Here we go.
This is real metal.
Great.
But a couple years later, the Whammy board said that we'd like to induct you into the Hall of Fame. And one more time, I kind of wanted to go like that to the establishment. So being up there in front of a microphone and in front of all the Milwaukee musicians, I picked out some Wisconsin bands that I liked, like Northless, and Zola Jesus is from Madison originally, and I forget, I mentioned a couple others, and I was like, check out these bands because they're doing it their way, which I always considered Die Kreuzen always did things the way we wanted to, how we wanted to, and when we wanted to.
Right.
So, one more time, check out these bands because they're the shit, they're for real, and they're doing their things their way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's, respect, because that's a thing that, I think sometimes people forget about the ability to have a platform to do that kind of thing. So I thought that was super cool. And then, so you got all that stuff. You got the bash. There's the split with Melvin's, right? That was cool. That whole stuff that they did, that was neat. The Hazel was great.
There's a picture of us playing at that in Minneapolis, and if you look just past Keith, there's Mark Arm is standing there, and Buzz from Melvin's is standing there, and Brannon from Laughing Hyenas and Negative Approach is standing there, and a bunch of other people, and they're watching us, and it's just like, wow. Like, that's awesome. Again, like I guess I didn't waste time,
right, exactly, because you're forced to sort of revisit that mindset of like, oh wait, actually maybe not. All right, which is kind of cool. I mean, well, and that leads naturally into the crosses, which I think is super interesting as well. And the nice thing, as I mentioned, when I had Keith on too, doing the Die Kreuzen reunion stuff, is there's a whole generation that never got to hear these songs live, that like the records, but they broke up before they were born.
Interesting little story. The Crosses went out to Seattle a while back, and I was sitting selling Crosses t-shirts. Yeah, and a family came up to the merch table. There was a little kid and the mom and the dad. And the mom and the dad were like, we used to come see you back in the day. Awesome. And we brought our son because he's a huge fan. And he was like 11 years old or something. And he looked up at me and held out the first Die Kreuzen album because he wanted an autograph. And he's like, thank you so much, mister, for playing this music. I never thought I'd get to hear this music live. And you guys were so awesome. And wow.
Yeah, that's
The whole family was there, and then they each bought a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Just fucking
that's great.
crazy.
Man. That's put that in your bingo card, right? I mean,
Right.
That's pretty wild. I think that's cool. So, and then you've been, so that's been happening, and then like again to take it all back around, then you're not sitting in your laurels. You have Deadfinger doing stuff, and you're making new music, being creative, which honestly, in the era of COVID, which we still are in, by the way, we're still
Absolutely, we are. People like to think it's over with, and hell no, man, we're in the middle of a pandemic yet.
The only thing that's over is like the government apparently caring about it. I mean, like,
Right.
It's just live, laugh, love is the new motto from the CDC. Great.
Deadfinger was a little concerned last week when we had our record release party because we did it at the Circle A, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Very intimate.
Very intimate. Very small. I mean, you get 20 people in there and
of a venue. Yeah.
we're up on each other,
Yeah.
So Dwayne and I put out a little blurb first saying, as COVID cases rise, you might not recognize Dwayne and I on Saturday if you come to the show because we'll be wearing masks.
Yeah.
And if you could, we'd like you to wear a mask, and if you're not feeling well, stay home and maybe consider getting a test. But everybody that showed up wore a mask. I think there was 32 people paid in and out by the end of the night, which is really good for
Circle A. That's so
in a pandemic. We did all right. And but
for non-Milwaukee people, Circle A is basically the size of a living room. It's a very small venue.
It's very small.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's cool when you can see bands there, but it's a whole new thing when it's COVID era.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I was pleased to see that people were taking it seriously still, and
it depends on where you go, and I'll say that from personal and recent experience, where it's like, you didn't have it down here? Okay.
Oh yeah, we don't have that here. What?
Okay.
What are you talking about?
Like, don't feel bad when I keep my distance.
Right. Yeah, it's nothing personal.
Yeah, I'm gonna be 10 feet away from fucking you, and it's okay. But okay, so then you got. And I guess I should mention how people can get the Deadfinger record, right? I mean, are you? I know that for local folks, you can get it at oh my goodness, you can get it.
My window's open here. I'm getting some fresh air
at Rushmore, I think, right? You can get the
right now. I have it available exclusively at Rushmore, just because they're such good friends. And during the pandemic, which we are still in, during the lockdowns, they shut down downstairs. But I live right above the record store, and they welcomed me every day. They were in there just restocking, cleaning. They were shut down for 6 or 7 months. And, they were in there ordering more stuff, restocking, cleaning the store, going through the basement, bringing stuff out, pricing it and setting it out. And they let me hang out. They let me help. They let me work. And so I just, again, it's like the brother thing. I feel like they're my brothers. And so we're going to sell it there for a little bit. Eventually I'll get it around to the other stores, but I just kind of wanted to tip my hat to them and let them have it for a while. But otherwise it's available far and wide on the Big Cartel.
Right. And you've got it, and it's cool record. Like you mentioned, there's like the there's Deadfinger originals, but there's also like that Misfits cover, there's Scott Walker, Patti Smith, David Bowie. It's cool. It's a cool record.
Thank you. I'm proud.
It may not be what people expect necessarily, but like I think it's very interesting and cool.
No, I think people will be surprised. Another reason I kind of wanted to do that was I've been told many times that I am not a singer and I cannot sing. You just scream, dude. You scream and yell. So, okay, drop the needle on the Deadfinger record and tell me again that I can't sing. All right.
Yeah. Nice. I love it. No, it's cool. I mean, it's like kind of swampy. It's a neat record. Like it's their.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot to love there. And so what is it? It's a Deadfinger BigCartel.com. Is that
Yes. Exactly. Deadfinger.bigcartel.com.
Awesome. And
You can find all that on our Facebook page or on our Bandcamp page. And you can also see the video for our first single, Ghosts.
for Ghosts, yeah, which is great. That's awesome.
Thank you. We got more of that coming, more in that vein.
So, Dan, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for spending so much time with me and talking to me about all the music.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate your time and for putting me on.
Last thing, this is the only canned question I ever ask folks I have on, and you can choose to interpret it however you like.
Okay.
Why do you do what you do?
Because it's in my blood. I've wanted to do it since I was a little kid. It's the only thing that makes me feel good every time I do it. I can do whatever in life, but when I'm making music, especially with friends, I'm in the happiest place ever. That's why I do it.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.
You too. I'll see you around.
All right. Sounds good, man. Oh, and there he goes. Mr. Dan Kubinski. What a cool guy. I think after all that talking about it, the only possible song that we could play out on has to be Gone Away, right? But we'll play Ghost right after that. So here's Gone Away first.
in my nightmare, in leftover dreams, in hollow catacombs, in resurrected dusty schemes, infected cells, saddened at the laughter. Through my endless years, there's always belief. La 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 la. I miss you. My heart wants what it wants. It's greedy all day it wants. Never falling into fatigue or relenting beast who scratch, bites, and claws like falling prey in a frozen grip. I fight to end the la 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 la. I need you. Prevail my love and fortify my stance. So cruel, unforgiving, your ghost torments me no more. La 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 la. I love you, baby. Even as my heart breaks, open if only I could draw you in. La 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 la. Goodbye, my love.
All right. All right. Well, there you go. That was Deadfinger with Ghosts. There's a cool video for that. You can find that deadfinger.bandcamp.com. The whole Deadfinger record. Also, Big Cartel
Can you hear me
as
now?
well. That's another place that you can find Deadfinger stuff. There's like shirts. There's all kinds of stuff. So look around for that. Before that, we had Gone Away, a little band called Die Kreuzen. Some young up-and-comers. If you enjoyed this episode, thank you very much for listening.
Are we going?
Feel free to share it around, like, subscribe, etc. Also, check out the one I had Keith on, which is episode 106, which is nuts. It's nuts. That was like 5 years ago. But anyway. Yeah, but the name of this show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. And thank you very much for listening to it. The show airs Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific on Radio Nope, radionope.com. Say yes to Nope. Streaming on YouTube and Twitch. All the archives always available for free at ProtonicReversal.com. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding.
Signing off.
But if you like the show and want to get episodes sooner,
Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea.
Patreon.com/ProtonicReversal. $1 a month will
Anyone within the
achieve
sound of my voice.
that very achievable goal. Thanks, folks, for liking, subscribing, all that business. It's how people find the show. Writing a review if that's your deal.
50,000 watts of power.
Only the 5-star ones, though. There's enough negative ones out there.
Ionize the air.
Yeah, so if you like the show or even just a single episode, feel free to share it around. Like, you know, you can send it to a friend. Helps people find the show, and, you know, it's just a darn nice thing to do.
This microphone turns sound into electricity.
Bunch of cool stuff coming up. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for listening.
Can you
Stay
hear
safe
me
out there.
now? Out on
Take it
Route
easy.
128, we're dark and lonely. I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 The end of radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear